The Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Now someone in the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the family inheritance with me." But he said to him, "Friend, who set me to be a judge or arbitrator over you?" And he said to them, "Take care. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions." And then he told them a parable. The land of a rich man produced abundantly, and he thought to himself, "What should I do? For I've no place to store my crops." Then he said, "I will do this. I will pull down my barns, and I will build larger ones. And there I will store all of my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, 'Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, be merry.' But God said to him, 'You fool, this very night your life is being demanded of you. And the things that you have prepared, whose will they be?' And so it is with those who store up treasures for themselves, but are not rich toward God." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
So a few years ago, I retired. More or less. I stopped working full time. But as my wife and I sat down around the kitchen table, and we got out the paper and the pencil and the checkbook and all that kind of stuff, as we began planning for those times when we would step away from our regular responsibilities, we had to ask ourselves some serious financial questions. That was the big driver on when we would retire. I didn't buy a home until I was in my 50s, mid-50s, and so I had a mortgage that I had to deal with. I had a kid that was still in college. And so we had to sort out and figure out when was it exactly that we would be able to pull the plug on the regular work schedule and move into retirement. I knew for sure we couldn't handle it unless I got out from underneath that mortgage. We had to get the house paid off before I could retire because, as many of you know, the big worry for us older people is you don't want to outlive your money. And so we struggle with that, and we watch over that, and we all do that because we're trying to be responsible family members, responsible citizens. We're trying to be responsible regarding the ways in which we manage that money. Jesus is confronted with some people here who are also struggling about money. "Jesus, tell my brother that he ought to give me a piece of the inheritance." In the old days, the person who got the inheritance was the oldest child in the family. That tradition continued for many, many years. That's why so many second and third children came to America to find their fortune here because the older brothers stayed back in Europe. So Jesus, it's all about the money somehow, isn't it? Tell my brother that I'm important too. I matter. And tell him to split the inheritance with me. And so Jesus, concerned about the ways in which folks were engaging money, the ways in which people were implying or making implications about the value of an individual, he tells them a parable. The land produced an abundance. The landowner in the parable that Jesus begins to talk about has received, maybe not an inheritance, but certainly a wonderful gift. Maybe indeed we would call what happened there is that he received a miracle. And the quandary is, how would he would the man who received this abundant harvest, would he be one who was going to view that as a gift? Might he view it as a burden? That's the quandary. How to manage a miracle when it comes your way. And so as the parable goes on, we learn a little bit about this man, this farmer, who had this windfall harvest drop in his lap. What am I to do? I know what I'll do, says he. I will build bigger barns. And there I'll have ample space to store my crops. And so he tears down his smaller little barns that had served him over the years, and he built bigger barns. And he said, now I will eat, drink, and be merry. My goodness, that phrase is in the Bible, but boy, it's all over our culture, our society as well. Okay? Eat, drink, and be merry, and celebrate this abundance, this miracle that has come his way. Yes, this rich farmer is making some assumptions. He probably is assuming that in some way it's, he's the one who's responsible for this windfall harvest. Good farming practices, worked extra hard. Put a little more fertilizer on that one garden than I did last year, and now look at the great response. Look at this windfall harvest. The other assumption that this man is making is that somehow this great harvest, this abundance that has come his way, is for his benefit only. He's the sole beneficiary of this miracle that has happened before his very eyes. And he has acted accordingly. And he's built bigger barns to store his crops. And now he'll kick back, eat, drink, and be merry. I call this guy a farmer up to this point, but as we read the text carefully, he's called a fool. In your Bible, if you're one of those Bibles that has sort of little headings on it, that this parable is called the parable of the rich fool. Rembrandt painted a picture, a portrait, entitled The Rich Fool. It's a man who's sitting there in what looks like sort of an ancient library, surrounded by books. It's kind of a dark place. The books there on the shelves surrounding this man, these books represent the wisdom of the ages. Words that were bound together so that they might be shared with other people, so that they might grow in their wisdom, in their understanding, in their knowledge. And in the shadows of those books, this man is sitting all alone, isolated in the dim light, and he's staring at a coin. Now, there's no caption on Rembrandt's portrait, but we all know what's going on. The man is contemplating that coin, surrounded by wisdom, the wisdom that's easily and quickly shared. He's contemplating what to do with his treasure, with the miracle of the riches that he holds in his hand. Our parable goes on. And it says, let me read the words so I get them exactly right. It says, God said to him, "You fool." God said that. "You fool. This very night, your life is being demanded of you. that's how we interpret that. That's how we have translated those words in our English Bibles. In the original Greek language that the Bible was written in, a direct translation of that text is, "Foolish man, they demand your soul." They refers back to the ample goods. A miracle has fallen into your lap. You are rich beyond all expectation. You think it's a result of your own hard work and endurance. You think that gift is for you alone. And so you're building bigger barns. Foolish man, they have demanded your soul. Those ample goods have captured you. And they have twisted and changed maybe your values, your morals, that your very being. They now control your soul. In some ways, that does mean death. That does mean your life will come to an end as you know it. This very night, they demand your soul. We see that happen all the time. I remember years ago, I took my kids to the circus in Madison Square Garden. Sitting behind us was a family that had 2 kids. And, and we're sitting there enjoying this circus. I mean, and it's just kind of crazy. There's multiple rings going on. There's lions and tigers and bears, and there's people flying around in the air, clowns, and I mean, it's just nuts. I mean, you're overstimulated even. But anyway, there we are, and there's something for everybody going on all the time, right? Sitting behind us is this family, and the one kid in this family his eye has been captured by some toy that they're selling as they're walking around there. Mm-hmm. And all this kid can do is think about this toy and pester his parents. Buy me that toy. I want that toy. And I'm thinking, oh my God. This family laid down some serious coin to come to the circus. Mm-hmm. And nobody's enjoying this. Nobody's sort of captivated by the thrills and pageantry of the circus. They're fixated on this, $7 toy that the kids gotta have. And that's what this parable is about. Jesus warning us that each of us is susceptible to wanting a really crappy duck. because we think there's $80 attached to it. We want that toy that captures our soul and pulls us away from everything else that God's intending for us. I'm told that full refrigerators keep things colder. Apparently the physics behind that is that when you open the refrigerator to whatever, take the milk out or grab an apple or whatever you're going to do, when you open the door, if the refrigerator is full, there's no space for warm air to enter. And so the warm air can't fill that void. This guy built bigger barns. Full barns leave no space for God. I believe that's what Jesus is warning us about. When one young man says, I want a piece of that inheritance. The money's more important than my relationship with my brother. And so Jesus is cautioning each of us. Simply be careful. To what is your soul attached? This guy could have managed the miracle that came his way by building a bigger table instead of a bigger barn. That's probably the direction Jesus would have wanted him to go. Build bigger tables, not bigger barns. But he chose to build the barn. Full barns and greed, and when we fill them, they are called by God himself foolish. And so, apparently, is the person who lays up treasure for themselves, not toward God, but toward the things of this world. All of us are called to be financially prudent. We want to make good investments. We need to pay our bills. It's important that we make assessments all the time of the value of things, and the value of people, and the value of our relationship with God. So when the miracle comes your way, consider at least building a bigger table, not a bigger barn, because we want to be rich toward God. Because where our treasure is,